Have you ever heard someone say, you should only train each muscle once a week? Or maybe you've heard the opposite. You need to hit every muscle every day if you want to grow. Both sides argue over the same question. How often should you train? From an engineering perspective, that's actually the wrong question. The better one is, when is your body ready to benefit from another training session? Because muscle doesn't care what day is on the calendar, it only responds to the stimulus that you provide and the recovery that follows it. Last time we talked about how training is only the input, recovery is where adaptation happens. When you finish a workout, your muscles begin repairing any tissue that was damaged, as well as starting the process of protein synthesis. Damaged proteins are replaced. Muscle gradually becomes stronger and more resistant to the same stimulus, and this process does not happen instantly. It takes time. And once that adaptation is complete, your body has very little reason to continue improving unless it's challenged again. Training too soon interrupts recovery. Training too late means you're spending unnecessary time maintaining instead of progressing. The goal is to apply the next stimulus after recovery has largely occurred, not simply because it's Monday. Every workout is a mechanical stimulus. You expose the muscle to tension, create fatigue, and send a signal that says the current system is not sufficient. Build something stronger. Once the workout is over, the training itself is finished. Now the body begins adapting. It repairs damaged proteins, replenishes energy, stores it, and reinforces the muscles so it's better prepared for the next challenge. That process takes time. It isn't complete the moment you rack the weights, and it doesn't continue indefinitely. Eventually, though, recovery slows, adaptation levels off, and your body reaches a new baseline. At that point, the signal from your previous workout has largely done its job. This creates an important window. Train the muscle again before it's adequately recovered, and performance usually suffers. You won't be able to produce the same level of force, your technique may begin to break down, and the additional fatigue can interfere with the adaptation that is already taking place. Wait too long, however, and you're no longer building on the fresh adaptation. You're simply delaying the next opportunity to tell your body that it needs to continue improving. Neither extreme is ideal. The objective isn't to train a muscle as soon as it stops feeling sore. It isn't to wait exactly 7 days because that's what your workout split says. It's to apply the next productive stimulus when the muscle has recovered enough to perform well enough again and benefit from another challenge. That's what training frequency is really all about. It's not about the calendar, it's about matching the timing of your training to the biology of adaptation. Again, not as soon as possible, not as late as possible, at the time that your body allows. Now, let's look at how this applies in practice. For decades, one of the most popular approaches to bodybuilding was the classic bro split. Monday was chest, Tuesday back, Wednesday shoulders. Each muscle group has its own dedicated day where it was trained with a very high amount of volume before not being trained again for an entire week. Some people even sprinkled in arms on Thursday. That creates a stimulus, yes. After all, if you've just completed 20 hard sets for your chest, you've definitely given your muscles a reason to adapt. But here's where that understanding stimulus and fatigue becomes important. As we discussed in the last episode, every set you perform creates two things at the same time: stimulus, which is the signal that tells your body to build stronger muscle, and fatigue, the cost of producing that stimulus. Early in the workout, this is a great trade off. You're fresh, your muscles can produce a high level of force, your technique is controlled. You can train close to failure with great execution. Those first several hard sets are usually your highest quality work. But each set changes the system. Your energy stores begin to decline, fatigue accumulates, your ability to produce force gradually decreases, your concentration starts to fade. Maintaining perfect technique becomes much more difficult. The muscle is still working, but the quality of work begins to change. Imagine trying to sprint 10 100-meter races back to back to back. Your first sprint might be close to your maximum speed, but by the 10th, you're still running, but you aren't producing nearly the same performance. Training's very similar to the sprinting example. As fatigue accumulates, each additional set often produces a smaller increase in productive stimulus while generating a larger increase in fatigue. We've talked on diminishing returns before, but we'll touch on it again here. The first several productive sets are extremely valuable. The 20th set usually is 20 times more effective than the first. Fact, it may contribute very little additional growth while making recovery significantly more difficult. Now imagine taking those same 20 weekly sets and dividing them into 2 sessions. Instead of 20 sets on Monday, you perform 10 sets on Monday and then another 10 later on the week, maybe a Thursday or a Friday. Notice what has changed. The total weekly volume is still the exact same. You're still performing 20 sets, the amount of work is essentially the same. But the quality of that work is very different. When you begin the second session, you're no longer carrying the fatigue from the 10 additional chest exercises performed just minutes earlier. You've had time to recover. You're fresh again. Your technique is sharper. You can generate high levels of force again. Each repetition is performed with greater intent and better control. Instead of forcing productive workout of an exhausted muscle, you're creating another high quality training opportunity. And this is the key. You haven't simply split one workout into 2 smaller workouts. You've created 2 separate opportunities to stimulate muscle growth. From an engineering perspective, you've increased the efficiency of a system. Rather than concentrating all of your fatigue into one massive event, you've distributed the workload in a way that allows you to maintain higher performance while still achieving the same amount of weekly work. That's one of the biggest reasons why many lifters grow better by training each muscle more than once per week. It's not because the muscles have favorite days of the week. It's because spreading the workload often allows you to accumulate more high quality training throughout the week. So, what does the research actually say? Over the past several years, researchers have compared different training frequencies to see whether working a muscle more often leads to greater muscle growth. At first glance, the results seem to support higher frequencies. When total weekly training volume is held constant, training a muscle at least twice per week often produces results that are equal to or slightly better than training it only once per week. That's only part of the story. The more interesting question is why? Is there something special about training on Monday and Thursday instead of just Monday? No, not necessarily. What the research suggests is that frequency isn't acting as a direct driver of muscle growth. Instead, it's a tool that helps you organize your training. By spreading your weekly work across multiple sessions, you can often perform more of your sets while you're fresh. We just talked on this. You maintain better technique, produce more force, manage fatigue more efficiently, and you recover more consistently between workouts. In other words, the benefit isn't coming from the number of times you walk into the gym. It's coming from improving the quality of the work you perform while you are in the gym. There isn't a magical training frequency that suddenly unlocks muscle growth. Your muscles don't know whether it's the second time you've trained them this week or the third. They respond, remember, to mechanical tension. They respond to recovery. They respond to repeated productive training over time. Frequency is simply one way of managing those variables. For most people, training each muscle around 2 times per week is an excellent starting point. It provides enough opportunities to apply a new stimulus without making recovery unnecessarily difficult. As you gain experience, however, that answer can change. Some people recover exceptionally well. They sleep enough, eat enough, manage stress effectively, and can tolerate higher workloads. Those individuals may benefit from training a muscle 3 or even 4 times per week, especially if their weekly volume is divided into manageable sessions. Others have demanding jobs, inconsistent sleep, limited recovery, or simply perform a large amount of work in each session. They may make excellent progress with slightly lower frequencies because that's what allows them to recover and train hard again. Exercise selection also matters on top of this. Recovering from a few sets of biceps curls is very different from recovering after multiple heavy sets of barbell squats or RDLs. Some exercises create much more systemic fatigue than others, and your training schedule should account for that. A total amount of weekly training matters as well. Someone performing 8 hard sets for a muscle each week has a very different recovery demands than someone performing 20. As your workload increases, distributing that volume across additional sessions often becomes more practical. This is why there isn't one universal answer for everyone. The best training frequency often depends on how quickly you recover, how much work you're doing, and whether each workout allows you to maintain a high level of performance. The schedule should fit the biology, not the other way around. So, instead of asking, how many days should I wait? Ask yourself, can I train this muscle with high effort, good technique, and sufficient performance today? If the answer is yes, it's likely ready. Aim to spread your weekly training across multiple sessions rather than cramming everything into one day. Prioritize quality over marathon workouts. Think in terms of productive stimuli, not calendar days, because your muscles don't know what day of the week it is. They only know whether they've been given a reason to adapt. And lastly, everyone's biology is different. So you may ask your friend for their split and another friend for their split, and they're very different. That does not necessarily mean that one of them is right and the other is wrong. One of the hardest pills to swallow is that everyone is different, and you need to learn your body. The longer you lift, the more data you will have, and the more you will know what you respond best to. Muscle growth is not determined by how often you step into the gym. It's determined by how consistently you apply the right stimulus, allow recovery to occur, and repeat that process over time. Frequency is simply one tool for managing that cycle. Use it to keep the quality of your training high, your recovery on track, and your progress moving forward. In the next episode, we'll answer another question that causes a lot of confusion. How many sets do you actually need to build muscle? Until next time, always train with intention. This is Strength by Design.